Welcome back to the Rules Plus podcast. In this episode, I'm going to continue tapping a resource we may not typically consult, the 2024 Football Instant Replay Case Book, which helps replay officials deliver accurate, consistent rulings across the nation using guidelines anchored in the prescribed intent and interpretation of rules. Last week, we pulled aside the replay booth curtain to peek at guiding principles that are being used to deliver rulings concerning fumbles, pylon plays, blocking during onside kicks, and determining whether passes are forward or backward. This week, we'll consider particulars about when a ball carrier is down, when a ball carrier is out of bounds, when a safety or a touchback has occurred, and when indicators of targeting are present. Knowing what replay officials are expected to consider should be helpful for us in understanding what we are expected to consider when we see a play unfold, even if we're seeing it in real time rather than slow motion. So, first, when is a ball carrier down? The fundamental language we should internalize is in Rule 413B. A ball carrier is down when any part of his body except his hand or foot touches the ground. The casebook elaborates with instructive details, and there are several here. The hand, wrist, and foot ankle touching the ground does not put a runner down. A ball carrier who obviously has given himself up and is sliding feet first is down and defenseless. That's in 227.4, by the way. As soon as a player starts his slide, typically indicated by the player's butt starting to drop, the play is over and the runner is down. A fumble cannot occur after a player starts his slide. It is a fumble if a ball hits the ground and comes loose with no other body part down. A ball that comes out with only a hand or wrist touching the ground is a fumble. And final point, a foul against a player after he begins his slide is a dead ball foul. On fourth down, the ball turns over to Team B, and the penalty is enforced after the change of possession. Of course, we also know that there is one notable exception to a ball carrier being down in the case of a holder for a place kick. If a player is in position to make a kick at the snap, the ball remains alive until that player is no longer in position to do so or has simulated making a kick. But we have to exercise judgment about when the holder's special exemption expires, because it does not expire immediately. Here is an illustrative approved ruling that confirms the latitude afforded the offensive team to carry out a trick play from a place kick formation. Approved ruling 413, Roman 2. Team A is in formation to attempt a field goal. At the snap, A22 is in position to execute a right-footed place kick, and A33 is in position as the holder. The snap goes to A33, who has a knee on the ground. Just after the snap, A22 breaks to his left and toward the neutral zone, and A33, while still on his knee, flips a forward pass to A22, who carries the ball beyond the line to gain before he is tackled. The ruling? Legal play, because at the snap, A22 was in position to attempt a place kick. 1st and 10 for Team A. As interesting as this approved ruling is, actually there is one just previous to it that, while off this immediate subject, is, I think, well worth noting as long as we're in the neighborhood. It concerns a play we rarely see, if ever, but a play that is certainly plausible concerning batting a ball being held for a place kick. Consider how you would handle this play. This is approved ruling 413, Roman 1. While A1 is holding the ball for a place kick, Team B plays the ball by A, recovering a loose ball, B, snatching it from A1, or C, batting it from A1's hands. Do you smell a foul in any of these scenarios, especially in B or C? What foul might there be? Is it legal to, quote, snatch, end quote, the ball from a player who possesses it? Is it legal to bat a ball from a player who possesses it? Does the legality of snatching or batting depend on the kind of play during which the action occurs? Is there some sort of special protection afforded a player who possesses the ball while in a scrimmage kick formation? If either action is a foul, what is the foul and what is the appropriate signal for it? What would the enforcement spot be? Previous spot? Succeeding spot? Perhaps the post scrimmage kick enforcement spot? These are all reasonable questions that I think many of us would have when such an unusual situation catches us by surprise. Well, now I've stalled long enough for you to consider what you might do in the case of this approved ruling. So here's the ruling. Does it make sense after all, or do you find it surprising in some fashion? Here it is. Ruling in A, B, and C, the ball remains alive. In C, the batting by Team B is legal and results in a fumble. So there you have it. I find the ruling actually to be quite sensible. I invented the questions that I posed before reading the ruling because I think the valuable lesson from this approved ruling is one I've referenced before: the danger of overthinking stuff. The more possible rules there are that are relevant to a play, the greater the danger that we can experience paralysis by analysis. The more surprising the action is, the more compelling our reflex presumption is that something illegal must have happened. We wouldn't think of a defender recovering a loose ball or snatching the ball from a ball carrier during a routine scrimmage down. We see that all the time, but we hardly ever see it during a place kick when the so called ball carrier is a player positioned to be the holder. The approved rulings for the scenarios in A and B are not surprising when we get over the unusual nature of these scenarios. But perhaps the legality of the batting in scenario C is, in fact, a little surprising. For one, we don't often see players batting a ball, period. Two, we tend to regard batting as something that happens when a ball is loose, not when it's in possession. And three, batting is unusual enough that it tends to look illegal when it happens. We can forget that batting is perfectly legal. If a player who is eligible to touch a forward pass bats a forward pass, and batting a loose ball backward is also perfectly legal. The aspect of this play that we could consider surprising is that batting a ball in possession of the holder for a place kick is legal. Surprising because the ball is not loose, and surprising because it's not at all certain that the batting would be backward. Nevertheless, by philosophy, if not by the letter of the law, this approved ruling confirms that we regard the ball coming loose from batting by Team B as the responsibility of Team A's failure to maintain possession. We don't have batting so much as we simply have a fumble. And there are two important implications of regarding the loose ball in scenario C as fumbling rather than muffing by Team A. The fourth down fumble rule applies, or the provision governing a fumble during a try applies. If any Team A player besides the holder recovers the loose ball, the ball becomes dead immediately. If I ever see such a play, I hope I will quickly process all of these aspects of what's going on and have the presence of mind to react correctly by killing the play if Team A possesses the ball, or by allowing the play to continue if Team B recovers the ball. All right, second topic. When a ball carrier is out of bounds. The casebook offers two instructive details. One, a player is out of bounds when any part of his body touches anything on or outside a boundary line other than another player or official. You can find that in 4-2-1. 2, if in the normal process of taking a step, any part of the foot touches the sideline, that foot is out of bounds. While neither of these points sounds like news to a veteran official, consider this scenario from an approved ruling, a scenario that could easily fool us into making an incorrect call. Approved ruling 4-1 Roman 3. Team A executes an onside kick at the A35. Of course, for us, that would probably be at the A40, but we'll go with what's in the text of the approved ruling. So again, Team A executes an onside kick at the A35. A33 is running near the sideline and steps out of bounds at the A45. At the A47, he leaps and bats the ball forward, and it rolls out of bounds at the A49. Again, I suggest we pause here and consider what our first instinct might be for handling this play. Some kind of foul must have occurred. The prime candidates would be, perhaps in order, illegally batting the ball forward, that's in 941C, illegally going out of bounds and being the first player to touch the ball, that's in 6111, maybe, or illegally going out of bounds and returning inbounds. That would be also in 6111. The respective penalties would be 10 yards and loss of down from the previous spot by 941C for the illegal batting foul, or 5 yards from the previous spot for either of the going out of bounds fouls, allegedly in 6111. Would we remember that for any of these three candidate fouls, that there would also be an option to enforce the penalty from where Team B would next put the ball in play? That's in provision 618. And what about the loss of down provision for illegally batting the ball? How is that handled on a kickoff? Well, here's yet another example of how our thinking can be muddled by unusual activity to which it seems that, at least initially, multiple rules provisions apply. Candidate fouls 1, illegal batting, and 3, illegally returning in bounds, at least reflect correct understanding and application of Rules 941C and 6111, respectively. But candidate foul 2, being the first player to touch the ball, doesn't even reflect correct understanding of 6111, which has nothing to do with what a Team A player who goes out of bounds during a free kick does after he returns inbounds. He fouls simply by returning inbounds. It turns out the correct action to take is hidden in plain sight if only we slow down and digest what has happened. Here's the ruling. Foul against Team A for a free kick out of bounds at the A47. Airborne A33 is out of bounds when he touches the ball because he has not established himself inbounds after going out of bounds. Not a foul for batting the ball forward because the ball is dead as soon as A33 touches it. And the reference shown is 4-2-3A. Of course, there are three penalty options for a free kick out of bounds: 5 yards from the previous spot, 5 yards from the spot where the subsequent dead ball belongs to Team B, or 30 yards beyond Team A's restraining line at the closest hash mark. If we were to penalize for illegal batting, we would only consider two of those three penalty options: previous spot, or where Team B will put the ball in play, and cost Team A 5 yards by assessing a 10-yard instead of a 5-yard penalty. The loss of down provision is irrelevant because it otherwise conflicts with other rules. If we were to penalize for the out-of-bounds player getting involved, we'd get the yardage correct but fail to provide that third option of 30 yards from the restraining line. Since this play involved an onside kick, it's likely Team B would choose one of the penalties that allow it to next put the ball in play. And under the specific details of this play scenario, it's highly likely Team B would not choose the 30-yard option. But if the scenario details were just a little different, for example, the 30-yard option would give Team B a more favorable field position, then our failure to give Team B that particular option would become much more important. There's one more lesson to be noted in this scenario. Crew coordination and communication are critical for getting it right, especially in critical moments such as this scenario reflects. For the covering official, it's critical that he or she give detailed and accurate information to the referee. For the referee, it's critical that he or she not make assumptions about what happened or to fail to follow up with the reporting official to fill in critical details that may have been omitted in the wing official's initial report. What did the covering official report? That there was a free kick out of bounds, that there was illegal forward batting, that a player illegally returned in bounds, that an airborne player who had not reestablished himself in bounds had been involved. I can tell you that when I'm at referee, I'm happy for a covering official to simply report what foul he or she has without a narrative. But there are times, as in this scenario, when the covering official may want to offer a fuller narrative, or I may want to ask questions about why the covering official is reporting a particular foul. I can tell you that a referee doing his or her job usually is the last person in the stadium who knows what has happened downfield. Covering officials can really help the referee with a concise but thorough narrative, and referees must listen critically and ask questions to be sure they have the complete picture of what has happened. How about when has a safety or a touchback occurred? The casebook has guidelines regarding that is, 4 critical principles. For a safety to be ruled, you can check 851, the ball must be completely in the field of play when a progress is stopped for the play to have ended out of the end zone. And any part of the ball being in the end zone when it is ruled dead causes the ball to be in the end zone. For a touchback to be ruled, and that's covered in 861, there are 3 things to keep in mind. A touchback occurs when the ball becomes dead out of bounds behind a goal line, except from an incomplete forward pass, or becomes dead in the possession of a player on, above, or behind his own goal line, and the attacking team is responsible for the ball being there. The second consideration, a touchback occurs when a kick becomes dead by rule behind the defending team's goal line and the attacking team is responsible for the ball being there. And third, a kick, whether free or scrimmage kick, untouched by Team B that touches the end zone is a touchback. We know the key concepts for determining which team is responsible for the ball's location are impetus and status, where impetus refers to who imparted movement and status refers to how movement was imparted. Status is permanent, but impetus can change. The casebook guidelines present no surprises. Impetus is imparted by a player who kicks, passes, snaps, or fumbles the ball in any direction, and those acts determine the ball's status. That is, why the ball is loose. Kicking a ball not in player possession or batting a loose ball after it strikes the ground imparts new impetus, unless the ball is in the end zone. A ball at rest gets new impetus when there is any contact with it. This is covered in 871. Momentum sounds like a synonym for impetus, but in the context of football rules, the term refers to a player rather than to the ball. We know that when a player who is moving toward his own goal line gains possession of a loose ball on or inside the 5-yard line, the ball's location is deemed to be the spot where possession is gained if the player's momentum carries him into the end zone. When it is momentum that carries a ball into the end zone rather than impetus, the result is that the ball's location is not deemed to be in the end zone. What's of interest to us about the Casebook guidelines is not that they add new information for us, but rather that which aspects of a play are reviewable and which are not illustrate philosophy and interpretation we might find instructive. Here's what I mean. The Casebook instructs that where the ball is possessed relative to the goal is always reviewable, but how the ball gets into the end zone is never reviewable. The Casebook clarifies that when the on-field ruling is that a player's momentum carried the ball into the end zone, only the spot of possession can be reviewed, not the ruling that the momentum rule applies. Once the on-field ruling is that the momentum rule applies, the result of the play, if the ball does not leave the end zone, will either be a spot inside the 5-yard line or a touchback. The ruling will never be changed to a safety. What that tells me is that, for one of the few times in this era of replay, officials in a college game are in the same position that we are in Texas high school games. In both cases, we are the sole judge whether the momentum rule applies. That means we may be in the position of having to determine whether a safety has been scored. And so, one obscure provision in the officiating standards applies to us. That provision is in Section 11 of the Standards regarding scoring plays. And there, Provision 2 says that when in question, the play is not a safety. Here are two instructive approved rulings in light of this officiating philosophy. Approved Ruling 851, Roman 8. B40 intercepts a pass on Team B's 4-yard line. His momentum is taking him into the end zone when he fumbles the ball on the 1-yard line. And A, B40 recovers the fumble in the end zone, or B, B45, a teammate of the fumbler, recovers the fumble in the end zone. The ruling in both cases, I think, or I hope that you guessed it, safety. Here's approved ruling 851, Roman 9. B47 intercepts a pass at the B3. His momentum carries him into the end zone where he fumbles. The ball rolls into the field of play. A33 recovers at the B2, but he is hit and fumbles. The ball rolls into the end zone and over the end line. The ruling here, touchback. Team B's ball, 1st and 10, at the B20. The momentum rule applies only if the ball remains in the end zone and is declared dead there. That is in 861. We should remember to use proper beanbag mechanics both to mark the spot of possession and to indicate that the momentum rule applies. However, in situations such as in these two approved rulings, things may change, even if our initial ruling of momentum must be revised by subsequent events. The final situation from the casebook to consider is when indicators of targeting are present. As with the determination of whether the momentum rule applies, the casebook's instructions concerning what is reviewable provide helpful hints for us in determining whether the indicators of targeting are present. We know that targeting means taking aim at an opponent for the purposes of attacking with forcible contact that goes beyond making a legal tackle or a legal block or playing the ball. But determining targeting is not left up to simple judgment. We should not rule targeting without determining that all elements of targeting are confirmed. In college games, such confirmation is provided by the replay official. In Texas high school games, such confirmation can only be provided by our sound judgment and crew collaboration in reviewing what we have seen on the field. The casebook instructs the replay official that a ruling of stands is not an option for a ruling regarding a foul called for targeting. The lesson for us is that we too may not settle for a ruling of simply the call should stand. We really need to be sure that we have targeting. No less than a replay official, we would be well advised to understand these key points, as they're referred to in the casebook, in our on-field review of a targeting call. And here are the key points. Replay must first determine if the player receiving contact is considered to be defenseless. If he is defenseless, both 913 and 914 apply. Point. The next step is determining whether there is an indicator present. If there is no indicator, there is no foul for targeting. Look at body posture of the player initiating the contact. Then ask these questions. Is his head up, or does the player lower it? What does the player lead with? Does he leave his feet, or does he run through the opponent? Is he attacking with force? Is the contact with the crown of the helmet? References here for the crown of the helmet to 913. The crown of the helmet is the top segment of the helmet defined by a 6-inch radius from the apex of the helmet. And a final question, is the contact to the head or neck area? We should acknowledge as well that often there are two fouls on a play involving targeting. If replay can remove targeting and still have the other foul enforced, well, so can we. So, bringing down the curtain for looking at the casebook. I think we've mined from the casebook the most useful practical stuff that we can in order to mimic on Friday nights what we've got just a minute or so in a very public place to make a decision about that the replay guys get 2 or 3 minutes to make in relative privacy. Congratulations to us for doing what we do without the safety net our college colleagues enjoy. Look, I don't begrudge them the help they get. I do encourage you and your crew to work as a team to spread out the heavy lifting that some plays inevitably require of all of us. A closing word. I hope you'll continue to make time to listen to upcoming weekly episodes of this podcast as we are now into in-season discussions of topical subjects. Remember, I'm a member of the Austin Football Officials Association. If you'd like to learn more about us, contact us. You can email us at recruiting@afoa.ws, visit our website at www.austinfootballofficials.org, call us at 512-298-2987, or follow us on your favorite social media platforms, including Instagram at ATX Football Refs and Facebook at Austin Football Officials Association. Until next time, have a great week.